we're not showing this to my kids till they're like 30, right?
Hello and welcome to the Hall of Faith podcast. I am the Hall of Faith Cowboy. I am a rodeo cowboy by day and a podcaster by night. Each show, I am committed to delivering a raw, authentic, and detailed insight to an individual's life and how God works with that individual in their day-to-day life. My current series is called A Man's Man, and my guest today is a very good buddy of mine, Angus Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
This is pretty exciting. Got to say, at first it was like, I'm not sure I'm ready for that big stage. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to be
That's
here.
cool, man. Well, I get that it takes a lot to say yes to something like this and to spill your beans so the whole world might be able to see it. And I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. We go way back.
It feels like we
It
have.
feels
huh?
like it. It
Yeah,
does feel
feels
like
like I met you when I was 6.
For the record, I was 1 at that time.
Oh, yeah, you are 5 years younger, huh? I'm 40.
Weeks.
You're 36.
I will be.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
What day's your birthday?
24th. Don't
Or-
tell anybody. It's a secret.
February?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a secret. Don't tell anyone.
Right? I won't.
Thanks.
I met you at Living Word Bible Church. It's pretty cool. I remember the day. It was so cool, man. I walked out into the foyer, and a lot of people would actually come and introduce themselves to me for whatever reason. You came one day and you introduced yourself to me, right? But right when you walked up, the first thing that I was struck by was something about your courage or your willingness to reach out your hand and say, "Hey, I'm Angus." It was like it was your job to introduce yourself to me or whatever. Like I should know you. It was like that was the kind of way you came across. I'm like, I think I like this guy already. And you reminded me of Jason Statham, kind of sharp, kind of had a cool shirt on,
Yeah.
sleeves rolled up,
Bald head.
Yep. all clean, kind of had the.
Keep it high and tight.
And I said, so where do you come from? And you're like, well, I've been in the church for 15 or more years. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? And so I was shocked as you were that we hadn't met and been around each other yet. And I have no idea still to this day how we weren't.
No idea how our paths had never crossed really before. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
I totally agree. And when I talk to people who've been in the church forever, like, oh yeah, I know Angus. I'm
Mhm.
like, how do you know him? And I don't, right?
Mhm.
But you told me that you had been teaching a foundations class and that nobody was coming. I'm like, what? That's weird.
Yeah.
And so in that exact same conversation, I thought to myself that I could ask you to come help me teach and be a co-teacher with me at Tools Bible Study.
Right.
And in that same conversation, you're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. It's definitely a gift of mine.
Yeah.
That's where we started, right?
There was probably not very much enthusiasm in my voice at the time, but yes, I knew it was something that I could help with and that I was probably called to do at the time. So, little detail, the Scottsdale campus where we met, I'd only been going to for a couple months, and they asked me to go over there specifically to train the teacher of that foundations class because I had taught that class for like 2.5 or 3 years over at the larger Mesa campus. And had put it down for some personal reasons. Came over there, introduced myself to you, after going there, kind of hiding in the back for about 6 months. You asked me that, and I'm like, yeah, I could teach. Like,
You accepted my offer right away, and we set up an appointment to meet at Starbucks.
mhm.
And that was really the first time I sat down in front of you and then got to know you.
Yeah.
And we probably sat there for an hour talking about life and
Yeah.
everything that we were up to, and that was cool, man.
Yeah. Kind of poured it all out there, what was going on with me and
Yeah.
where I was at. And it's fun to look back on now because you were an integral part of that transition that I was going through. And I didn't recognize it at the time, and I was probably resistant to it a little bit at the time. But I believe that it was part of the purpose and part of the plan and needed to happen. So real thankful for those days.
Yeah, man, it's perfect. And so we've been teaching this class together every other week. We trade off teaching at Tools
Mhm.
Bible Study on Wednesdays at Scottsdale Living Word Bible Church.
Right.
And that's developed me big time, man. It was your idea to form the thing afterwards that we go to called Clean Up and little coffee shop fellowship afterwards. It's pretty cool, dude.
I would have to say, other than the time that I get to spend with my kids, Wednesday nights are my favorite night of the week.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about you is that like our relationship is like it can occur confrontational sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're just happy-go-lucky people all the time. Like you and I both deal with stuff inside of our friendship,
Right.
but we continue to work it out.
Yeah.
And that's why you're here today,
Right.
because of the man who I think that you are, and both of us hold each other accountable for things, even when we don't want to be held accountable.
Right.
And that's really great, dude. It's like,
Sure.
when we're clicking on all cylinders, man,
Yeah.
we can really get some work done, I feel like.
Yeah. There's a little bit of headbutting that goes on, but I think it's always been for the best. We push each other and we encourage each other. We sometimes we resist it because we don't want to change, or we don't want to know or look at ourselves in the mirror and see what's going on. But that sharpening that goes on there's some sparks that fly once in a while, but it's something that makes me a sharper human being. So
Yeah, I agree.
I appreciate that.
We always come back to the table, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it never changes the fact that I know I'm your friend and that I know that you're my friend. There's never that, fear around it for me that, well, I can't tell Stacey something because he might not be my friend, or he might be hurt, or
Yeah.
I'm going to tell him like it is, and he's going to tell me like it is, and we're going to maybe throw some blows at each other, but we're just going to be stronger at the end of it. So,
For me, it's like your friendship really does mean a lot to me, specifically because of where I'm at in my life and in my stand, in my walk with God. There are times where I'm actually wondering, is he going to not want to talk to me anymore? Is he not going to want to be my friend because of that, what I said? That does cross my mind. And then we have the conversation, and I say what I just said to you,
right.
And then we laugh about it, and it always cleans itself up. So that's cool,
Yeah.
man. Well, I invited you here today to talk about this conversation. We've had offline conversation about being a man's man. Guys, let's get right into it, man.
Okay.
I want to know, and I always preface this because these are questions that I've always wanted to ask people.
Okay.
And it's not a common conversation for me to be able to walk up to somebody and say, hey, who were your heroes when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a strange question, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this format gives me an opportunity to ask all the questions that I want, because
Right.
I want to pick people's brains, right? I want to pick your brain. I want to know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
And I think other people are also interested in what's going on in your brain too,
Sure.
even if they don't want to admit it. The reason I want to talk about being a man's man is because I enjoy being a man, right? There's so many awesome things
Right.
about it, right?
Right.
I get to be strong, tough, fast. I get to, exercise my manhood, right?
Sure.
And you talk to some guys and it's not always like that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see it like that. They don't exercise it like
Definitely.
I choose to exercise it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a guy who likes to exercise your manhood, right?
Absolutely. I believe if you're not living on the edge, then you're not really living. So yeah, you gotta kind of let it fly sometimes.
That's right, dude. You're here because we can talk about men and being men, right?
Sure.
I want to know, like, when you were a little kid, naturally, as a kid, you look up to men.
Mm-hmm.
And I've asked this question before, like, who were your heroes? And I get the funniest answers, man. So I'm just curious from you, like,
Yeah.
who were some of your heroes when you were a kid?
As a kid, it was probably different than looking back now as an adult, but I had some really good influences, and it starts with my dad for sure. One of the hardest working men I've ever met. Super respectful, deliberate, real stoic. If you don't know him, you think he might be mad at you. You don't really know him until you know him, and then once you get to know him, you find out that he's got that really dry, like, dad humor. That's endears him to me quite a bit, but also he's 100% for his family, like 100% more than any other dad I've ever met. Truly laid down his life for his family, and just an incredible example to me. Certainly not perfect, and I've learned a lot of things from that too, watching some of the things that he struggles with and some of the challenges that he has, and kind of, in a sense, how he owns them. He's like, yep, not good at that. Oh, well, it's not important. Move on to what is important. And that always seems to revolve around family and, working hard when it's time to work, and then taking off the time to spend the time with the family, and just tremendous respect for him and what he's been able to teach me in that. So it starts there for sure. One of the things that he did for us as kids, he didn't make a ton of money when I was younger, but it was important for him to give us a good education, and so he paid for us to have a private education in our elementary years, and that leads to somebody that as a young man I looked up to a lot, which was the headmaster of our school, a guy named Dr. Truman Davis. Mountain of a man. I mean, I think he was like 6'10", 6'11", and when you're when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, and you might as well be looking up at the sun. I mean, he was just huge, tremendous example, of how to live, how to walk, how to talk, true gentleman, but carried authority with him, and I think back on him, and a great influence on my life early on. As time has gone, Dr. Tom Anderson from Mesa is definitely one of my heroes. I mean, all the things that he's accomplished, the way he leads, he is truly one of those people that men want to follow, right? You look at that guy and it's like, yeah, wherever he's going, I'll go with that guy. I mean, the way that he treats his wife, the way that he treats his daughter-in-laws, the way that he treats his grandkids, like absolutely, teddy bear, the way that he treats them. His life looks perfect, and you think there's got to be something there that's wrong. And if you get the chance to spend time around him, you realize how real he is. I mean, he won't hold anything back. He'll tell you what his struggles are. He'll tell you what the challenges are. He'll tell you what he's thinking here and what he's thinking there, and you realize that it's not a show. He's just 100% genuine, and I really have tremendous respect for him. But I think it's funny, as I was thinking about him, and only 2 people came to my mind over the last couple of weeks, I just realized, like, I don't think I have that many heroes. I don't. There are not a lot of men that I look up to. I grew up Catholic, went to a Catholic church, and a lot of the stigma, or some people would call it doctrine, but about Christians turning the other cheek and that kind of stuff, made it to where I saw a lot of, I don't know, wimpy men. I grew up around a lot of men that it was like, nah, I don't want to be like that. I do not want, if that's what it is to be a Christian, and that's what it is to be a man, it just didn't resonate with me at all. It's kind of like there are about 4 other men that have, in my mind, kind of become one person, and those were 4 different coaches that I had at different times throughout junior high and high school. One wrestling coach and a couple of football coaches. One of them was a guy who's been in my life for all of my life. His name's Jess Parker, one of the winningest football coaches in the state of Arizona's history, and also just total hard ass. The intensity that's in his eyes, you're just like, whoa. Like, I feel like he could just kick my ass just looking at me. He instilled a lot of intensity and expectation for greatness in me as a young man. Coach Wheeler, who was one of his assistants, I'm still friends with him. He's probably my dad's best friend. I think he's in his early 70s, 71. Still the absolute hardest working man I've ever met. I mean, in shape, powerlifting, like weight training, pours concrete every weekend, just hard ass. Like 5'6" and just whip your ass up and down day and night. Like 71 years old. Don't mess around with that guy. And then Coach Gallegos was my wrestling and one of my football coaches. I still remember we'd have a hard day of practice, and near the end of the practice, he'd shout out something like, "It's a great day to be alive." And we'd have to shout it back, and, none of us believed at that moment that it was a great day to be alive. And yet I find myself now, 36 years old, and it was just a couple weeks ago, I said that out loud to myself.
Yeah.
Like, great day to be alive. He was very influential and helped me. I ended up placing in state in wrestling, one of the best wrestlers in my weight class in the state. So a lot of that was his training and believing in me. And then finally, Coach Buskin was my senior varsity football coach. A lot of these men were more than coaches. They trained me on how to be a man. They went beyond the game and beyond the sport to raising you to believe in yourself and do what it took to get to what you were aiming for, to accomplish your goal. So those 4 people kind of in my head embody what a coach is, and it's really is part of the biggest reason that I believe that it is incredibly important to have a coach in your life. You and I have talked about that offline, where I've just called you out and just said, okay, who is your coach? Who's your mentor right now? Because if you don't have one, then who's pushing you? Who's going to make you great? Who's going to believe in you more than you believe in yourself? When you get tired, when you get frustrated, when you get down, who's there to say, no, get back up, we got to do one more rep. Get back up, we got to do one more lap. If you don't have somebody that believes in you more than you believe in yourself, that sees the greatness in you and helps you draw it out, then I think you're holding yourself back.
It's cool, man. Yeah, you have some really great examples. My examples are not even like that at all. I totally get what you got out of each man. I get what you got out of your dad, and I get what you got out of the mountain of a man. Yeah, I also get what you've gotten out of Pastor Tom. I totally see the man that you're talking about right there, and he is an absolute leader of men, mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And then I played against Jess Parker.
Did you?
I sure did, yeah. So I know his game.
Yeah.
And I did have a coach in my off-season baseball, Gallegos. I don't know if it's the same Gallegos, but
probably not, because he was football and wrestling.
Okay.
Were his sports that he coached.
Right on. I mean, I've had coaches my whole life, and when I thought about my heroes, not I mean, maybe one coach popped into my head, that really made a big difference. And you just realize how much influence a coach really has on your life,
Yeah.
Something that you said really stuck out about being a Christian and watching people in seminary or in Catholic school. And this is what it's like to be a Christian, I don't want to be a Christian, right? I had the exact same thing that you did, man. I'm like, I don't want my hair parted on the side, right? I don't want to dress with slacks and a real nice Izod polo, right, with Dockers and carry my Bible. That's not it. I have a little bit more self-expression than that. Where's the man Christian?
I don't want to be a pushover. I don't want to be wimpy. I don't want to be.
Yeah. And Pastor Tom embodies that, right?
Right.
I mean, he's 6 foot tall. Maybe he's even 6'1". And when he stands next to you, it's not like he's going to beat you up, but it's more like you aspire to be like him, or he's got something that you need. He doesn't even have to talk. It's just he comes and stands next to you, and it feels that way.
Yeah. But at 70 years old, too, a guy that you don't really think that you want to mess with, you know, he still carries the presence with him that says, I don't care how old I am, like, and you shouldn't care how old I am, too, because I'll still whip your ass.
In junior high, at the youth group, I was the arm wrestling champion. And he took me on and he beat me. I was like in 8th grade or 9th grade or whatever, and he got me, man.
Nice.
He was down for it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool, dude.
Yep.
I really got that. I think that's really neat, just who those men were for you. You know, I can see how that would have shaped your young adult life to get you to where you are now, right? Which takes me to my next part. Like, I want to know, as a man today, walking around on the planet, doing the things that we do as men, what are some everyday, real difficulties or struggles that you actually deal with?
I don't have any of those. I don't know what you're talking about. I think when you're, a Christian and a man, like, you just have your stuff all together, and there's nothing out of place, right?
Yeah. And
I mean, that's how you experience it, right?
Yeah, I experience it like lots and lots and lots of loads of extra money.
Yeah.
All the time. I picture it like I have like a yacht on the East Coast, a yacht on the West Coast. Bills, or they don't ever even show up there. If they did, they would already be paid.
I have people that take care of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's
I mean,
easy.
relationships
Life is good.
come easy. No bickerment, argument. It's just smooth.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot like
people bring Starbucks to me in the morning. Different people every morning.
And they know how hot you want it, right?
Totally, dude. Yeah.
It's a lot like that, except sometimes there's a few things that I struggle with. You asked me these questions a couple of days ago, so you kind of gave me a heads up and allowed me to think through some of that stuff, and I appreciate that, because it's definitely way better than on the spot. Just what bothers me,
right?
And so the first thing that came to my head as I was thinking about it is growing up in a house that we didn't have a lot of money, didn't have some of the nice things that some of my friends had and that kind of stuff. I kind of grew up with a little bit of a poverty mentality or mindset, and that money was hard to come by, and that still to this day, I think that I struggle with that somewhat because of that mentality, but also with some bad choices that I made as a young man. Just even though I learned how to make money, and I learned how to make pretty good money from most people's perspectives, I didn't really learn how to manage it, which is funny, because for a lot of years I was actually a financial advisor and helped people manage their money, right? So like I knew how to take money and make more money as far as investments and that kind of stuff, and I knew how to get the insurance and stuff that people need to protect themselves. And yet at the same time, I didn't build the discipline that said, hey, when you are making those early decisions, it's important to not spend all your money. I got married at a young age, started a family at a young age, and bought my first house at like 21 years old. And we bought a bigger house than we probably should have bought at the time. And nobody really told us or advised us on, what we should have been doing, how we should have been making those decisions. And then we sold that, and we made a little bit of money off of it. And we bought a bigger house a couple years later, and we sold that. And, we were kind of on a lucky streak, if you will. We'd buy a house that we could barely afford, and we'd make it work, and then we'd sell it and make a little bit of money, and it was like, hey, this is working pretty good. And then we'd buy a bigger house that we could barely afford, and that would work okay. And then things were tight a lot, because we would consistently make that same choice of buying the very biggest house that we could afford. I realize now, looking back, that's not a great way to handle your life. I mean, that big house or whatever seems nice, but if it's stress all the time, it's not really a great way to do it. You're not really going to get to enjoy life like you should. That created some problems for me. And so I still have kind of this struggle that comes up sometimes of, providing for my family, providing for my kids. Whenever there's a bad month or something like that, because I do own my own business, and so sometimes that's volatile, right? I realize that I go into this ultra control freak mode of there's a crisis management that has to happen. We got to shut all the systems down and make sure that everything's under control. And I realize that that's not the best way for me to operate. It's not great for me to, for my kids to see that, and for me to handle things that way. And really, I think that I should have a better handle on that, and, make some better choices or something around that. So that's kind of the first thing that came to my mind.
What actually happens, or what does it literally look like in your life when crisis mode happens? Like, what's the actual event that's taking place?
Okay, so I'm a pretty laid back, easygoing guy most of the time who likes to do intense things. Like you and I talked a couple months ago. I jumped on a bull and rode a bull for the first time, and here in March I'm gonna go jump out of an airplane. And so I enjoy doing some more intense activities, but for the most part I'm really laid back and relaxed in my outlook and everything like that. I noticed that my pulse and heart rate and stuff, which is normally, close to like 55 beats a minute, all of a sudden I'm running at 75 beats a minute and I'm not doing anything. It's just there's blood pressure rising or whatever it is, and it just feels like there's kind of a restriction on my chest, and I don't like that feeling. And so then I try to fix it by controlling everything.
What's a real life event that takes place right before that control takes over?
It's changed a little bit over the last probably year and a half. From my problem has grown. It's changed, and that's a good thing. And yet I realize that it's still not fixed. Like, it's not like I've solved it. I work in the construction field, and for a while I would do most of the construction myself. And so I do a good job of relating to people. We've got some great vendors who recommend us, so we get a great referral system that comes in. So I'm not usually having to do too much marketing. For a while there, I was doing that mostly on my own. I'd hire a guy here or there to help me out. And it was going okay, but I couldn't keep up with the demand. And so I decided to transition my business, and I've got 5 guys working for me now. And then, they want to get paid when they want to get paid, or on a regular schedule, and I'm not used to that. I'm used to getting paid when the job's done, right? And so dealing with some of that, like, yeah, I know you want to get paid, but this job's only halfway done, and you're taking longer than it should have. It should have already been done by now, and if it was, then you could get paid. But I want to get paid too, so we should get to work.
Yeah, I
so
get you.
This week has been an interesting week. We're trying to handle 4 projects at the same time this week, and that's the first time we've ever done more than really 2. So it's an opportunity. But at the same time, it's really chaotic right now. We're learning. We're trying to figure out how do we communicate with 4 customers at the same time and make sure that all the materials are ordered on 4 jobs at the same time, and make sure we've got 5 guys on 4 jobs. It just, some of the math doesn't work, and so it got really pretty chaotic this week. And I have to admit I was under quite a bit of stress. And then I don't think that I have like an outlet. I don't yell at people or anything like that. I don't have those types of behaviors, but I definitely wears on me. I don't sleep as well. I know I'm a little shorter with people. You and I have had some conversations where, I specifically remember one where you called me up, hey, you got a couple minutes to talk? I'm like, no, I really don't. You're like, really? You can't just talk to me for 15 minutes? And I'm like, yes. And normally, like, I'd be like, shoot, yeah, let's talk for one. Sometimes we talk for an hour and a half, and it's no big deal, right? But there's days where it's like, I don't have 5 minutes to give you, because my brain is racked with these other things. And so I'm not the same person that I normally am. I get kind of self-involved, where it's like, it's all about me and I got to figure out this situation.
Right.
I don't have time for the people that I care about. I don't like that, but I haven't solved it either.
In that scenario, something that might trigger that would be needing to pay the guys when they want to get paid, as opposed to when you think they should get paid.
Right.
And then taking control of the situation looks like maybe withdrawing from people, and you're not as apt to communicate, and you don't have an outlet, like you said. So it's natural for you just to stop communicating, right? And that probably has an impact on people who are close to you in your life,
For
right?
sure.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like, even though I'm not, it kind of feels like I'm holding my breath,
Okay.
like for a couple days at a time.
Yeah.
We're just like, I don't want to talk. I
Yeah.
can't talk. I'm literally holding my breath. I can't talk to you right now.
What's something else that you deal with?
We're not showing this to my kids till they're like 30, right?
We have PG ratings.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we could give them that version of this if you want.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
we like send this to like, what is it? Feature films for families, and they can edit this part out?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. With that, if that's the case, then we can be real. The second thing that came to my mind is definitely, lust and sex, and what does that mean? What's right? What's wrong? Sometimes I feel like what feels good isn't right, and I don't always know how to deal with that. That is a struggle that I think about, even though I try not to think about it. I would rather not think about it for the most part. Try to ignore it. Yeah, it never goes away for sure. And yet at the same time, there's times where, just being real, where I really question, like, is it worth my effort to change that? How bad is it? How wrong is it?
To change what?
To not engage in, whether it's looking at porn or, mess around with a woman or something like that. How wrong is that? And how much do I change, or how hard do I work to change it? Or is that not important right now? Those are real thoughts that I really have.
So that's so brilliant. And so I'm curious, like, what are the thoughts for you that it is good or it is bad? Like, what do you think is good, and then what do you think is bad?
We're going to have to go back before we go forward.
Sure.
So I'm divorced now. I've been divorced for about 16 months, and was married for almost 14 years, about 2 weeks shy of 14 years. Married when I was 20, and genuinely, honestly, 100% thought I'd be with her for the rest of my life. After getting divorced, I had some real questions as far as, what does that mean now? Not that I was perfect by any stretch, but I technically went into my marriage a virgin. I saved myself to an extent for that, and not that that's all that it takes, but in a sense, I kind of thought that would make life easier, and that would be a bigger part of making a marriage work. And now, out of it, be real honest, there's like a question in my head, doesn't really matter. I mean, it didn't seem to make, not that that's the only thing or anything like that. Obviously, I made a lot of mistakes along the way that broke that thing down. But at the same time, how important is that, to be pure or chaste or wait for the right person or whatever? Honestly, there's a bunch of questions around that now.
Yeah, I totally get that, man. That's really great. I don't have the same experience that you do. I've never been married. I'm definitely not a virgin, but I can see, like, walking into a marriage thinking I got being a virgin under my belt. This gives me access to having an amazing marriage to one woman for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I can only imagine that if that came apart, the questions that I would have too, man. According to you, before marriage, good looked like being a virgin before and then getting married.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, now what does bad look like?
Yeah. That's where I struggle. It's like, what is bad? What does it look like? Because, struggling with that and trying to withhold it from myself.
Trying to withhold what?
Just engaging in any kind of, sex or any type of, there are beliefs that I have that it's, okay to do certain things, and it's probably not okay to do other things. And am I putting weight on things that aren't really that important? Am I, beating myself up for stuff that doesn't really matter? Or, what is the benefit, I guess, is really the question of resisting urges and that kind of stuff.
I can totally see your perspective. And when you're speaking, what I hear behind all that you're saying is that you would love to be in a relationship with a woman. Like, all this that...
Oh, for sure.
All this is all coming from you wanting to be with a woman, right?
Don't tell anybody, but I'm totally a hopeless romantic. Like, would love to find that person that is, that we just fit each other, and whether we're going on an amazing adventure or we're sitting on the porch doing nothing, there's no place that I'd rather be than with her. Like, that's 100% where I hope to find myself. that's really truly a desire of my heart, to have somebody that I get to grow old with, and sitting there at 80, 90 years old, looking back, just remembering all the great things that we got to do, and still knowing that there's no place I'd rather be than sitting right there with her at 80 or 90 years old. And it's also something that I really struggle with, because it's like, I believe God wants that for me, and I believe that I, will find it eventually. And I realize that I'm kind of not very patient with that right now. I not that I'm hopeless about it or anything like that, but it's kind of like, I just don't know. I don't know what's, holding back, or why I might not have found somebody to do that with, or whatever it is yet. So I think I let myself get distracted.
Now, do you want me to edit all that right there?
Did that actually happen? You were still recording?
Yeah. And man, I get it. I mean, not like I can relate to what you're dealing with, but you're 16 months out of a marriage, and you're a hopeless romantic, and you're dealing with wanting to be with somebody right now and grow old with them, just like you said right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that would feel like, man. I have an idea, but I can see the struggle,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just really appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks.
The way you did it, because I think myself and whoever's listening a lot of people can relate, What's another area that you think you deal with?
Probably the area that's of the most concern to me right now didn't come up right away, and it's with regard to my kids and having the relationship that I want to have with them, or that I want to foster with them. I realize that there are times where I think I do, for the most part, a good job of staying connected and being engaged in my time that I have with them. And yet there are other times where I am made aware that there's nothing going on between us. I'll pick them up, or I'll get them from school or something, and we'll have that initial conversation. How was school? What's going on? What was your favorite part of the day? Yada, yada, yada. We're talking, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, we've gone like 5 minutes and nobody said anything. And not that you have to talk. I actually enjoy being with somebody and just knowing that everything's okay without talking. And yet at the same time, I realize like we kind of check out from each other a little bit. It's important for me to let them know that I care about every little detail of their life, and that they not only can talk to me about everything, but I really genuinely want them to feel like they want to talk to me about stuff, where I've fostered an environment and a relationship with them where whatever they have going on in their life, they genuinely want to talk about it to me, that they know that I care, that I'm interested in, that I want to hear. And I realize I don't always do that. And that's probably the most concerning thing to me.
So do you find that like that's times in your life that happens like that? Is it like when you're dealing with stuff that there you feel like there's distance, or is there something that triggers that, or is there seasons of it, or?
That's a good question, and I probably have not been aware enough of it looking back to have actually taken good inventory of what's causing this feeling right now. So I've got 4 kids. My older 2, Jack and Tate, they, in my opinion, from kind of an insider's viewpoint, I'd love to have somebody's perspective that's kind of from the outside or from the other side, but they kind of gravitate more toward their mom. And my younger 2 are totally, like, I feel like they just love being around me. Like, my daughter texts me all the time. She FaceTimes me. My 3rd son, Reed, he, I think too, like, my gut is that he would rather spend time with me than with his mom. And I'm not knocking that either way. I know as a young man, I gravitated toward my mom. I spent a lot more time with my mom than with my dad. Or at least a lot more quality time. Looking back, I think that my dad being pretty stoic and very strong, I didn't really feel like I measured up, and I felt like there was this disconnect in I didn't know if I could be good enough or a man enough in his eyes, or even in my own eyes in relationship to him. And so it was easier for me to connect to my mom. Trying to analyze my relationship with my kids, I know that sometimes I'm too critical on my older boys. Not who they are, but wanting them to experience the best and wanting them to become great men, and seeing the potential in them, trying to get that out of them. I realized that sometimes I probably put some of that pressure on them that I felt between my dad and myself. And so I'm becoming aware of that and trying to think through, how do I still foster and coach that greatness, but not create the tension and the pressure that creates a break in the intimacy there.
Yeah, that's really cool, dude. I totally get that. I can imagine what it's like to have 4 kids and have a different relationship with the 2 olders than the ones you do with the 2 youngers, and then comparing that to the relationship you had with your father. And I mean, I totally get how that could be a struggle. And I also get that it's important to you to have a great relationship with intimacy with all of your kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This takes me to my next little piece here. So it's the part that I like to bring in God in the conversation. And I think that people who are watching this can really relate to some stuff that you're saying, and maybe they're thinking, why is he dealing with that as a Christian, or will this ever go away, or who knows.
Right.
Really what they're thinking. But everything you said is just so relatable so far.
Right.
My relationship with God changes a lot. It evolves. And you know, where I'm at right now is that I didn't realize just how manly Jesus was. You know? Right. And I love the study about that, you know, because most of the photos you see of Jesus, he's sitting there petting a lamb, or he's sitting there kissing a 4-year-old or something. And
a little kid sitting on his lap,
exactly.
Yeah.
Or he's just doing something that's sweet, right? But then there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that talks about just straight how manly this dude was. Yeah. He literally went into a storehouse and turned over tables and bullwhipped. Yeah. Right? It was
a whole bunch of men. One on however many, he threw them out. Right.
I've never done that in my life, dude. Right? That's hardcore man, dude. Sure. You know, when he spoke to people, he was extremely intentional when he spoke, to the point where I picture Jesus as somebody who would stick his finger in my face to talk to me. Yeah. He occurs to me as extremely intentional and just maybe even confrontational. Right. All from love. Everything that he's saying is dead on perfect. Yeah. But dude, I mean, I don't think he would sweet talk me and tell me that I shouldn't do something, right? He just would just say. Yeah. That to me is like straight man. You know what I mean? And so the reason I'm saying that is because I think a lot of people have a funny picture of Jesus. That's not at all the case of who he really was, you know? Yeah. And so I'm just curious. I mean, you and I have had that conversation offline about who we think he is, and I know God is different for me than he is for you, but not real different. We just both have a relationship with him, right? Yeah. So like in those areas that we've talked about, how would you say God interacts with you inside those areas?
I want to answer that question, but I want to, something came up while you were talking about, you know, Jesus in the temple, and I respect him in that interaction and the man that it takes to do that. If I went in someplace where everybody's unarmed and I've got this whip and it's going, like, people are just going to run. It's easier to run than probably to resist, right? And so I get that picture, and it says man to me, but it doesn't say man, like, it doesn't paint to me the full picture of who he was, like the fact that he went down to the docks where the hardworking guys were and looked them straight in the eye and said, "Hey, you, come with me. I'm going to make you a fisher of men." If he was a wimp, if he was a little dude, if he was a shrimp, if he didn't carry something with him, you know, that presence, they'd be like, "Who's the nut job?"
Exactly.
Like, I'm not following you anywhere.
Right.
Right?
I have a business to run.
Yeah.
I'm busy.
I got a family. I got a, like, fishers of men. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
Dude, you're off your rock. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Beat it. And instead it was like, all right, I'll follow you.
Yeah.
And then he went a couple boats and got a couple guys. Like, hey, follow me. I'm going to make you a fisher of men.
Yeah. Go home and tell your wives.
I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm following that dude, right? Like I was talking about Pastor Tom before. Jess Parker's another one. Truman Davis is another one. Like, those are guys that if they look you in the eye and like, hey, follow me, I don't care where we're going. Like, I'm following you. Yeah. Like, you got something I want to have. I'm following you. And that to me, that's to me who the man Jesus is. This whole series is about men, or man's men, right? That is to me the man's man. When he can walk up to a bunch of men, hardworking men, business owning men, and look them in the eye and say, "You, follow me. I'm going to make you fisher of men." I don't even know what a fisher of men is, but I'm following you.
Exactly.
Like, that is who Jesus is to me. Like, I look at him like, right on.
And
like,
not only that, but go home and tell your wife that you're not going to be doing this anymore.
I'm laying down the business. I'm going to go follow this guy. He's going to make me, we're going to go catch men.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine the nagging that would be going on? Like, you're going to do what?
Exactly.
Like, no, I'm following this guy. Like, darling, if you had seen the way this guy looked at me, like, you'd be following him too.
Yeah.
That to me is who Jesus is. And it is also who I aspire to be. We talked a little bit about Tools Bible Study and my role there. And I now have a part-time job working for Living Word Bible Church. I actually run the Scottsdale campus. I'm the campus director up there. And I aspire to that. When I get a chance to stand up at the end of the service and do some of those announcements, and I aspire to be the type of person that says, we're doing a service event this Saturday. I'm going. You should be there. Like, I want people to be like, he's going. We should go.
Totally.
That's
awesome.
That's what I hope to someday carry fully like he carried it.
Yeah, no doubt.
That intensity and the passion that people just desire to be involved in.
Right.
That didn't answer your question at all, right?
No, it's perfect though. It's perfect because now we can talk to something specific, right?
Okay.
So if we take that, what you just said, and we just pick one area of where you struggle, like if we pick the lust area, the one that's kind of hard to talk about,
Okay.
like how does that relate?
So for me, it's I feel like there's a lack of integrity around it for me. Like if Jesus was standing there, right? Like if he looked at me in the eye, I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, shape up. I'd be like, yes, sir. Yeah. Right? Like, I'm not messing around like that anymore. Right?
Yeah. Well, what do you think he would be like? I mean, it's so great you said that, man, because I mean, and you know, he is real like that, and he would communicate with us the way he would communicate with us, whatever. So how do you envision him communicating with you when you're dealing with that?
Can I tell you like a story about kind of a dark time for me?
I never thought you'd get there. Thought you'd never ask.
So, we talked about the divorce. And so when it started to go down, I had some real struggle, some real emotional dark times that happened there. Far from perfect, 100% far from perfect, but I tried as much as I could to get as good as I could for about 11 months before I finally allowed the divorce to happen, before I finally said, okay, it's over. I'm not going to fight for it anymore. And went into some real depression. I mean, just honestly, just dark days. I'd go to work and I would sit at work and I'd do anything but work because I couldn't focus on it. I'd cry some days. I'd read some days. I'd watch videos some days, but I was just checked out. Like I just didn't care anymore about anything. As far as I was concerned, my life and the way that I thought it was going to go was pretty much over. And I didn't have a lot of hope for anything different out of that. I personally have known for a long time that there's a purpose on my life. There's a call on my life to do some amazing things. I recognize that I judged people who got divorced pretty seriously. Like not consciously, but in my head, it was always, if you want it hard, like you don't get divorced if you just try, right? Like there's no reason to get divorced if you try. There's always a way to work it out. But the fact of the matter is, it takes two people to want to try. Sometimes both people don't want to try hard enough when it's time. And so my ex was trying for a long time, and I was in a sense trying, but didn't realize how much she was struggling. And then when I realized how serious it was, then I tried, and she wasn't willing to try anymore. And we just grown apart, and it was not recoverable at that time. Too much damage had been done, and it is what it is. But I realized as I was going through it that it was now out of my control, and I didn't really know what to do about that. And all the judgment that I had always passed, now I was judging myself. And so I had a lot of shame that I was just carrying and didn't know how to deal with. Even during those dark times when I would question how it could happen, I never blamed God. I would genuinely question, like, how are you letting this happen? I don't believe that it's your will. And if I don't want it, and I'm praying and I'm doing this, that, and the other thing, like, how is this happening? I knew that she's a human being. She's going to make her own decisions. I'm a human being. I'm fallible 100%. this is our fault. None of this is God's fault. This is our fault. As it transitioned, then I started, the questions changed. The questions became, how are you ever going to use me like you've told me that you want to use me? And I really started to doubt my ability to fill my call, my ability to have the influence that I knew I was supposed to have.
What is your call?
So first and foremost, my gifting is as a teacher, but I believe that I've learned more in this past year that my call is to actually lead and to help people experience life to the fullest, God to the fullest, their purpose to the fullest.
Yeah.
During that period of time, I really doubted that I would ever be able to do that.
When you say that about divorce, why do you think one would question whether they can go on with their calling because of a divorce? Like what's the common thought about getting a divorce?
I reference scripture. I try to believe it more than I believe anything else. And there's certain parts specifically where Paul, one of the apostles, is teaching Timothy, one of his kind of prized students. Like he took Timothy under his wing, treated him like a son, and raised him up to be one of the leaders. And in one of the books to Timothy, he talks about how a leader in the church, an elder in the church, should have his affairs in order, his children should be well behaved, and he should treat his wife right, and he should have his kind of ducks in a row. And when all that fell apart, I judged myself according to that and said, I stepped down from leadership in the church and took myself out of teaching those classes when I was going through it. And that was hard too, because when you know that's part of your purpose and you're not fulfilling your purpose, then you're kind of left feeling unfulfilled. And so it kind of fed the depression more. Like, not only is this failing, but I'm also not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I can't do what I'm supposed to do because I failed in there. And so it was kind of just this downward spiral, like one thought fed the negative thought, and it just kept going and feeding each other. And so it was really not a pleasant time. In a vision, in an instant, I was reminded of something that I really hadn't thought of, maybe ever since the event. But when it came back to me, it was so liberating. Short story, when I was a junior in high school, I guess I was a pretty good wrestler, but I didn't really know how good of a wrestler I was. And it took some events that happened my senior year to show me, that made me aware that I was better at most things than I gave myself credit for, and I was holding myself back. But the night before the night before the regional tournament for wrestling as a junior, I stayed out too late helping our youth pastor repaint his house. I didn't get home till like 2 a.m. that morning. And then went to the regional tournament that morning, and I lost my first 2 matches to 2 guys I'd already beat during the season, and I was immediately eliminated from the rest of regionals and didn't even get to go to the state tournament. I can't even list all the negative emotions that I experienced in that instant. And I remember leaving the mat and walking straight out of the gym doors, and I remember my dad walking down the stairs as I was going toward the gym doors. I was going this way, he's coming down the stairs, and I walked right past him, and I went straight out and let the door slam behind me, and I just smashed the block wall with my hand. I mean, I probably fractured some of the bones in my hand, but I never got it x-rayed. I knew I was done wrestling for the season. It ended up healing fine, but knuckles were bleeding, and I was standing out there and just sobbing, like so mad at myself, so frustrated, so just disappointed with everything that happened. Finally got it all together, and went back into the gym and was kind of surprised that my dad was standing right there by the door. He didn't say anything. He put his arm around me, and we just walked. And I don't really remember anything else after that, but that was the vision that God showed me in this instant, that he knew how disappointed I was. And I was the most disappointed of anybody that I lost and that I failed in this marriage. Nobody else was as disappointed as I was. And he knew that I needed to go out and just let out all those emotions and grieve and rage, really. And he showed me that when all that was out, when I finally got all that negativity out of there that needed to be cleared out of the system, when it was time for me to come back in, he was going to be waiting there, and he was going to put his arm around me. That gave me so much peace in all that darkness. a year and a half ago, I was a mess. And in all that darkness, I at least had this little bit of peace that he showed me, that he knew how disappointed I was, that I was more disappointed and more full of shame than he was. He knew how much I tried. He knew how much she tried. He knew it just went wrong, and he was no longer judging me for it, but he knew I was still going through all of that, and I still needed to go out, and I still needed to punch a few walls, and I still needed to scream, and I still needed to cry. And when all of that was out, when it was time for me to come back in, when I was ready to re-engage, he was going to be there waiting for me. And that happened in a matter of weeks, right after that conversation that you and I met. You asked me if I'd be interested in teaching tools, and I told you I can teach. And I knew that, but in the back of my head, I knew I'm not in the right place to teach yet. Like you remember the movie Top Gun?
Oh yeah.
When Goose dies, right? Maverick's still a great pilot, but he's up in the air and he's just disconnected, right? He's not ready to re-engage. And he calls that guy out. He's like, I'll engage when I'm good and goddamn ready, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I was. I was out there, like, I'm still a good pilot. I can still teach.
Yeah.
But I'll engage when I'm good and goddamn ready. Like, I can't right now.
Right.
And you asked me if I could teach. I'm like, I can teach. But in my head, it was like, I'm not there. I'm not ready for that. 3 weeks later, because you asked me to do that and because I said yes, got involved in the leadership team, sit in that leadership team, and something changed. And God spoke to my heart and showed me that he needed me to step up into a new position and a new level of leadership that I was never familiar with. I'd always led. I'd always been involved in student governments, and I was the vice president of the student body in college, and like always been involved in leadership, but never at the level that he was getting ready to put me into. Yeah, that event, that conversation that he had in that first leadership meeting that I went to, where he began to give me a vision for how he needed me to lead and the mantle of leadership that he was about to put on me, began to change things. And there was a series of events. Different people said different things to me that I needed to hear that helped me release myself from that and begin to re-engage. And really, September of last year, the light finally came back on, and I re-engaged, letting go of a lot of that stuff. And now I kind of look at it like I'm running without the weight, you know, let cut some of that baggage and let it go. And now I'm just ready to fly again.
Man, it's just such a vivid picture. I have my own relationship with him and the things that he's done for me, but I love the vision of him just putting his arm around you, you know, and just recognizing that you were more disappointed than he was. Like, that's such an awesome picture right there, man, because if you're like me, you a lot of the time are probably thinking he's more disappointed than I am, and that's not the case. What I get from everything that you said is like, you felt him there with you the whole time, not making you wrong, not judging you, not asking you to lay down your call, nothing like that. He got it, right? Yeah. It's so cool, man. It's really a brilliant picture of what a father would look like. Yeah. What a caring father would do. That's actually very badass. Yeah. If other people could relate to that and just and see that that's what's possible, and who knows what the people that are listening have dealt with, and who knows what type of relationship situations they've dealt with. Yeah. But man, you know, if they could have that insight like you did, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
It changed everything. It allowed me to go through the grief and go through the struggle and not have the condemnation that I know spiritually the devil wanted to keep me in. He wanted to keep me in that kind of shame that would have kept me from doing what I do now, kept me from affecting the people that I have the opportunity to affect now. He would love to have kept me there. Yeah. And the fact that God was able to show me that reference of he gave me a great physical, natural dad, and using that gift to show me how he's even a better supernatural spiritual father. Yeah. Allowed me to have that freedom to deal with my stuff, to grieve, to go through that mourning period and come out literally better than I was before.
Wow, that's awesome, bro. There's those other two areas that you talked about. We don't have to go too far into it, you know, but I'm curious, how do you feel like God relates to you now in those other two areas, in the area of provision and in the area of intimacy with your kids?
Yeah, so provision, like I said, I've grown a lot in that area in the last couple months, and it's just changing now, right? It's not the same struggles that it used to be. They're different, and as I like to say, they're bigger. You know, I believe genuinely that you have to think bigger to really get to what an understanding of what God wants for your life. He put inside of us some amazing things, some amazing talents, and if we don't start to think bigger than we currently think, then we're not going to use those talents to the fullest that He's given us. So it's great from my perspective to see that I still have the challenge, and yet it's a different challenge, right? It's not the same challenge it always was. It's different. It's grown. It's bigger, which means I kind of cleared one of those hurdles, and now it's time for the next test, which is how do I handle this one? And I'm excited to see, even though they're not fun, right? Any type of growth typically comes with a little bit of pain, a little bit of challenge, a little bit of, stress or strain, but that is an opportunity to grow and to actually increase your strength. If I make it through this, if I learn what I'm supposed to learn, then that's going to make me stronger to handle the next step and take me to where I need to go. So I don't beat myself up for that first challenge. It's going to happen. It's going to probably always happen. If I'm growing to the place where I believe God wants me to go, there's always going to be another level. There's always going to be more potential growth. And so I need to just realize that I have to embrace that, not as a challenge, but as an opportunity. The third one, which is the most important, that relationship with the kids. It is important for me to learn and emulate some of the examples from my father and from God, that to create and to foster an environment of love and acceptance, right? That it doesn't always have to be pressure and stress and striving and trying to create this expectation of excellence, and there's no room for mistakes, because clearly we're going to make mistakes. And so my opportunity there is to remember how kind He is with me, how full of grace He is when I make mistakes, and that I need to be more kind and more gracious in my relationship with my boys and my kids, so that they have that opportunity too.
I have no idea what people from the outside looking at us who are active in ministry, what our lives are supposed to look like. Right. I mean, some people who are around us might think our lives are perfect and they're better than, or like we're better than because we're ministers. And then there are probably those standing outside thinking that we're the worst, right? Because we're the ministers, or that we're hiding something. So I don't know exactly what's going on in their minds, but you have really given a very great description of what it's like to be in a relationship with God and to actually deal with things in your day-to-day life. Yeah. So, so there's that. And then the other thing is that I just really acknowledge you, man. Like all that you shared is so, so awesome. And I promised raw, authentic, and detailed, and you gave me that. And it's like, I really believe people can relate to you specifically because of what you dealt with. And then that you had the courage to talk about your divorce, to talk about what it's like to want to be a better provider, to want to be a better father, to want to be a better minister. Like all that you said was just so great, man. And it just, I acknowledge you for who you are and who you are aspiring to be, who you're working towards being. Thanks. and the communication that you're in God with, like the path that you're on it's perfect, man. Right where you're at, what you're doing right now, it's perfect. And you're working it out, Thank you. And that's what Paul says. He's like, work your salvation out with fear and trembling. And people are like, what's fear and trembling? But working it out looks like being in communication about it, working it out, man. Yeah. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. And I just see you doing that. Like as your friend standing from the outside looking in, we talk about working it out, right? And you're doing it, man. So you're an inspiration to me because it's Navy SEAL, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your personal life for a minute, man.
Okay.
So what city do you live in? And I want to know about what you do for a living. And of course I know, but I want you to tell people.
Sure. So I grew up in Mesa, Arizona, and moved away for a couple years to Pine Top. And then for the last couple years, I've been in Chandler. About the last 6 years or so, I've been in the city of Chandler, and I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the best little cities in the country, and great leadership down there, great little community, city council, a great mayor that really foster families, education, business. Like it a lot.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Tell me about your kids.
Okay, so I adopted this name for them a couple months back. I started referring to them as my pride, because they, not only am I proud of them, but they're like 4 little lions. I mean, just each one of them is badass in their own way, and I'm so proud of them. I can't even begin. I mean, I can begin.
Yeah.
We will never get to the end of all of how proud I am of each of them, and each one of them is their own person. They lead in their own ways. They have so many different gifts. It's funny how different they are from each other, and yet each one of them is so perfect. And I'm just so proud of Jack's my oldest. He's in 8th grade, getting ready to go into 9th grade. We'll be at the high school level. It's hard to believe that I already have a high schooler, coming up this May. Tate is 12. He's in 6th grade. And then Reed he's 9 now, but he'll be 10 in about a week. And then Rowan, my little Rowan, is 7. She'll be 8 on Monday. So they'll be basically almost 14, 12, 10, and 8. Yeah. Just each one of them athletic, smart, witty. Oh my gosh, they'll just cut you down so fast with their words.
You light up when you talk about them, man.
Oh my gosh,
that's pretty cool.
I've never done anything better than those 4.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. Tell me about your business.
I went through a change during all that mess, all that depression. I realized I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not good for my clients this way, and so I recognized for their sake that I needed to get out.
Was that in finance?
Yeah, I was a financial advisor for the better part of 14 years, and I
can't even see that.
I was pretty good at it. It's because you didn't know me then.
Yeah.
But I was pretty good at it, had a good client base, and then never thought I'd do anything different, just like I never thought I'd get divorced. Always planned on doing it for the rest of my life. And when I couldn't answer phone calls anymore, and I couldn't make outbound phone calls anymore, because I went through that period, and I literally just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible. And I'll say this, that some of the guys that I used to work with used to ask me, why do you help that person? Like, you're not going to make any money off that person. And my mentality before was, if I don't help them, who will?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter if I don't make money. Like, they need help, and that was my heart. And during that period, during that darkness, I didn't care.
Sure.
Like, even some of my best clients, they'd call, hey, can we rebalance my portfolio, or what should we do about this? And I'd take the call, and I'd engage partially through it, because I didn't want to sound terrible. And in my head, it was like, I don't care about your problems right now. And I knew that was wrong, but I couldn't change it. I could not pull myself out of that funk. And so I just decided I have to do something different. So I started looking for a different job, and started giving my clients away to other guys that I trusted, that I knew would take care of my clients. And during that period, while I was trying to figure it out, my dad came to me and said, hey, your mom and I have been talking, and we think we want to take the company a different direction, and we think you're the right guy to do it. And he has owned a residential construction company. This is our 30th year in business. And so I'm pretty proud of that. The company's name is Usury Pass Construction. Yeah. Usury Pass is the road that takes you to the Salt River from Mesa. So that's where the name comes from. That's where we grew up, was right there on that corner. And so now I'm the general manager for a residential construction company. We do a lot of remodeling and really any kind of home improvement of any kind.
Well, let's pull up your website and check you out, man.
Yeah. So it's www.usurypass.com.
Yeah.
And we literally can do anything that you can dream of regarding your house, whether it's inside or outside. We'll help you with it.
And then I hear like fireplaces is yours, like a specialty.
Yeah. And like, for instance, I've got a client right now. We did a fireplace for her back in April of last year, and now we're remodeling her kitchen. She called us back, hey, it's time. We want you to remodel our kitchen. So we're going to go in there and replace her countertops with some new granite countertops, a new nice backsplash,
Sweet.
Undermount sink, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you like your new job.
I do.
It sounds like you're good at meeting with the customers,
showing
them what they want, helping them pick out what they like.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're kind of having fun doing that.
I'm having a blast. Yeah. Really, it's amazing to see how God can transition you from the darkness that I was in a year and a half ago to here it is a year and a half later, and I literally feel like I'm on top of the world. I mean, just so many wonderful things that he's lined up for me, and life is 180 degrees different.
That's cool, brother.
Yeah.
Well, what's your email address so we can reach you if you want to?
Yeah, it's info@usery, which is USERY, pass.com.
Tell us your phone number, and I'll put it up there for the folks.
Sure, it's 928-225-9617.
You're a fun guest, and it was a lot of fun, man, hearing from you. You know what I mean?
Pleasure.
You're fun to listen to because you're relatable, and you cuss like I do, right? And you deal with things like I do, and some of the same thoughts going through your head go through my head, and
right.
So I appreciate your friendship.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your accountability, and I love teaching with you.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing that together for at least another few months.
Yeah, actually, can I give a plug for that?
Oh, please.
I mentioned it before, but Wednesday nights are a blast. I genuinely have so much fun on Wednesday nights, and it's real. It's like this, we get together, we teach, but we have a good time. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of interaction, and there's some really cool friendships that are coming out of it. So for anybody out there that's listening to this, come check us out on Wednesday nights, 6:30, Living Word Bible Church in Scottsdale. Just come meet some really great people and have a good time.
Yeah, you are great at that, man. You're great at the fellowship part, the relationship part. That doesn't always come natural for me. I am very relational, but in my mind, like as a teacher, I'm like, get in, say what needs to be said, go home.
Yeah.
You're like, no. We're going to do that, but we're going to foster afterwards.
I feel like so many churches miss that. And if you actually look back at the book of Acts, which is when the church started, right? You got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which is when Jesus is alive. Then he dies, and that's when the church starts. And you look at those first couple chapters of Acts, and it's all about the fellowship. It's all about the community of saints living together, knowing each other, meeting each other's needs. And if you don't have that, then you're not doing church right.
I love that, dude. You're so exactly right. And obviously, because we've implemented this thing called cleanup afterwards, and man, we have 25 to 30 people in our class, and then we have minimum 15 people that show up to drink
just
coffee,
hang out for 3 or 4 hours afterwards, right? It's who does that?
Exactly.
It's because it's fun.
We don't necessarily continue talking about what we talked about. It's just to talk, right? I've gotten where I've gotten used to it, and I rely on it. It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't get home till 12:30.
Yeah, I've got a new mom out of it. You bring your mom every week, and she's my mom now too. I don't know if you know that, but
you guys do have a relationship.
We do, yeah.
You and Angus okay over there talking? You talked all night long.
We did on Wednesday night. I was sitting right there. We're just chatting it up.
Yeah.
She's hooking me up with friends. She's like, "Have you called Lacey yet? Have you called?"
Exactly.
I'm like, "I haven't. I'm busy. I'm a busy guy." But she's a great lady. I love her.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, you provided a lot for us, and so thanks, brother.
My pleasure.
It's been good and a lot of fun. And bye for now, huh?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hall of Faith listeners. We'll see you soon with a new visitor and a man's man.